You may be harming your kid by not understanding their personality type. Our guest here today, Antonia Allen, is the author of Unlocking the Introvert. So, this is a special episode for parents who need to understand the kind of personality your child has and how to help them be successful and to embrace their personalities. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Thank you so much for joining us, Antonia. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me, TD.
Wait, did I say that wrong? Antonia or Antonia?
Either is fine. It's about the same. It's fine.
What your
Antonia.
mama call you? No.
Call me Anne.
Okay. Okay. So we're so glad to have you today. We always start with asking our guests about what really hooked you into learning as a child. What really got you into learning?
So, because I was an introvert, actually, I used to love to read. That was my favorite thing to do, would be off on my own, reading a book, or just doing something that pertains to learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, first of all, let's define what an introvert is for people who may not know out there.
Mhm. So I think there's a misconception now that I'm learning more about it and understanding it. There's this misconception that introverts are shy or socially awkward, which, funny enough, that's what I used to think I was. That's what I used to say until I learned the term introvert and understood it better. Basically, it's just your personality type. It extroverts, they thrive on energy. We thrive on basically being off, because that's how we recharge. When we are exposed to too much of anything, it could even be a person or a situation or environment. We tend to just, like, our drain is like zapped. We need to go off and recharge.
Okay. All right. So, what are some of those things to help a parent maybe identify that their child could be an introvert?
Some of the things could be, well, one, the child is quiet, and
Okay.
they prefer to be off by themselves. And sometimes, I mean, depending on, because of course, like, there could be anything going on with a child at any given time. But I know that for me, I used to always be quiet, and my sister was more the rambunctious type. And you know and you know but I think, things are different now, in that children are more harsh, in that if you're not, a part of the crew, then you're weird.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for parents to just get to learn and understand their children. If they're not too certain, then, Google it. Like, everything is on the internet nowadays.
Yeah.
But when I started to learn about the personality type, one of the things that when I was reading this book by Susan Cain, Quiet, she mentioned that parents have this way of saying, if their children is behaving shy, if they meet someone, then the parent would say, "Oh, that's how they are." And she said parents should not do that, because then it makes it seem that the child is weird. And it's funny, because I used to do that to my niece, because that's what used to happen to me. And when I
Yeah.
read that, I decided I wouldn't do that anymore.
Okay.
Because it just makes the child feel that much more special, when in fact they're normal, right? It's just
Okay.
the thing is, they may not operate like everybody else, but they're normal. Like, you have extroverts, introverts, and ambiverts.
Okay. All right. So, usually quiet, they get recharged by being in solitude, right? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So those are important things for us to think of. How did this shape like your career path or your educational journey, you being an introvert?
So, as it pertains to my career, it didn't, because, like, I've been, a manager, a director of my department, but it did not, like, hinder my growth.
Okay.
Um, And that's because, we actually, introverts actually make great leaders. President Obama, people may not know, but there's so many people, Oprah Winfrey, that are also introverted. So it won't hinder our growth or our performance.
Okay.
It's just that, after being exposed to certain environments, we just want to go off and be alone just to recharge. So it could be, at a meeting, it could be, after work, they could be, kind of like a get together.
Right.
Sometimes we may have excuses that we don't want to go. And if we do go, we find an excuse to leave, or we go to the bathroom just to kind of like just recharge and regroup.
Okay.
So it doesn't, being an introvert does not hinder, growth. In fact, it's actually a great attribute because we are thinkers. Like, we like to think, we like to research, and oftentimes, like, my experience is that when I'm at work, I find that the people that speak the most, like the extroverts, they just speak. Like, they just basically like to throw out answers, where the introverts are more, silent, because they're contemplating what it is that they want to say. So, it's actually, in my opinion, but I could be biased, but in my opinion, we actually perform very well at work.
Okay. And so, what is something that, going back to when you were talking about your niece, you thought you were like helping explain for her, but it was, so what is the better way to handle that if, you know, you see those attributes? What should you say or do so it's not, problematic?
I think, if someone approaches a child, and they're speaking to them, and the child just, like, does this thing, I feel like just allow that to happen. Like, don't make excuses, right? Because this is just how they are. And I think, for me, looking back, I mean, thankfully, my mom never made me feel weird. um,
Okay.
but the other people did. But I feel like if people would learn more about the personality type, then they'd be able to have a healthier relationship with the child. Because sometimes, when we're quiet, because, again, people are quiet for many different reasons, but oftentimes, it is because of the personality type. As I continue to grow and learn and meet people who are introverted, we begin to exchange, experiences. And it's so funny how we experience some of the same things,
Yeah.
right? And, for me, it brings me joy, because I actually had to, educate my godson's mother, to let her know and understand, like, how he is. And I would tell her, just leave him, like, he's fine. Because
Okay.
when he went to college, she was concerned that he wasn't calling, and I'm like, he's not going to call. And it's not because of what, it was just that if we don't have anything to say, we just don't. It's like, what's the use?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that it's just important to learn and understand the child, and, kind of like, give them space so that they can grow and understand themselves, because I honestly didn't understand my personality type until a few years ago.
Okay.
Now that I understand it, I'm able to perform better. I'm able to communicate better, because now I can tell people I don't like small talk. No, no, you can't pop up at my house.
Wow. Okay. That I think is almost universal, but maybe some people are okay with that. But so taking us to your book now, it is Unlocking the Introvert, a pocket guide to understanding and interacting with introverts. So
Yes.
can you tell us about, highlight some parts of your book that really could help people who either have a child that is introvert or someone else in the family?
Sure. So, I actually did this because, as I grew to understand the personality type more, I realized how misunderstood I had been. Because I think for most of my adult life, I kept whining about, oh, I just want to be understood. And then once I learned what my personality type was, I was like, oh, wait a second, how can someone understand me if I don't understand myself? And so right? And so I decided to write this book, 17 chapters, from loving an introvert to coping with introverts. Because the reality is, if people don't know and understand the personality type, then they won't know and understand us. So then here comes the judging and the name calling and the bullying.
Mm.
So yeah, so then I kind of broke it down to even traveling, like traveling with an introvert, because sometimes we have like extroverted moments where we're thinking, yeah, we're gonna go party, and then the time comes, we're like, I just want to sleep in. And then you're a party pooper. So I think that there's just a little bit of everything for anyone. Because when I wrote the book, it was for introverts to understand themselves better, but then also for extroverts to learn and understand how it is, like to be with us, and
Yes.
to understand us. Yes.
All right. So make sure you get the book. It's in the show notes.
Yes.
So yes, unlocking the introvert, really important. 75% of children don't know how to write well. Add that to the fact that so many people out there are trying to silence the voices of those who have been oppressed and trying to prevent them from telling their story. Who's going to tell your story? If your child doesn't know how to write well, I have two books to address this issue: The Rewrite Method and The Rewrite Method Workbook, written to make sure that parents know what to do, that educators know what to do to get their children to write better, and just not write better, but love to write. Make sure that your next generation could tell their story and they won't be silenced. Go to fallingforlearning.com today to purchase your set. So, your experience as growing up with as an introverted child, what are some things that people did to help you? Because you talked about your mom didn't make you feel weird or anything. So, what are some things that she did to help you and that parents can do for their child too?
So my mother, excuse me, because I won't say that she understood me, but she was patient. I mean, even up until now, in that if I get quiet, she doesn't, are you okay? Because when people do that, because if we get quiet, then something is wrong, right? That's the assumption, when that's not the case, right? And so my mother has grown to understand that when I get quiet, and if I'm off on my own, it's nothing, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing to fix, like
Mm.
this is me just being me, just taking a moment. There are other people, however, who they'll keep pressing, like, are you sure? And that's when it becomes annoying, right? Because then the reality of it is, I said I was fine 5 times ago. And then it becomes not okay because now you've annoyed me.
So they've created a problem where there was none. That's understandable. Okay. So yeah, just let them be who they are. Don't try to label them as upset or whatever. Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes.
And can you tell me about like your college career or your career journey and how you flourish being as an introvert? Because you told us a little bit about in general, but more specifically.
Mhm. So, as it pertains to college, I grew up in New Jersey and moved to New York because I wanted to go to school in New York. And then I knew that there would have been more opportunities for employment. My background is accounting. And so when I moved to New York, I worked a bit and then I went to school in the evenings. So that I think in doing so, it kind of prevented me from doing two things. One, having to have to do the happy hour at work, and two, having to have to get too involved with extracurricular stuff at school. Like
Mm.
I'm looking back now and I'm realizing that these are the things that I used to do, like make excuse, like, oh, I have exam, or like whatever the case may be. But with school, like I've always loved studying. So even if my friends or whatsoever have you were going out, oh, I have to study. So that was always my excuse. As it pertains to work, I've always been a hard worker. Some would say that I was an overachiever because I used to love to basically go in early, stay late. I don't do that anymore. Um, and, and in doing so, like I was always you're given the opportunity to grow. At one job where I was there for almost 10 years, I was promoted 5 times. It
Yeah.
was a struggle to be honest, because one being young, two being female, three being black. I felt it, even though I appreciated it, because it was based off of my merit. But in the same breath, there were other colleagues who had been around for a longer time that I had to now manage.
Mm.
Of course, here comes the jealousy. But the good thing is, like I've learned how to smile in the past 2 years, but for the most part, I used to always have my resting face. And so, so, I used to smile in pictures and stuff, but walking on the street, I always looked mean. That's what people used to say. Oh my God, you look so mean. But I think it was my way of basically putting up a defense so that no one would approach. Which I guess it has its benefits, and like that. But as it pertained to work, I was always a great performer because I took the time to learn what I needed to do and basically get the job done. I wasn't into, making friends at work per se.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and so, it was easy for me to separate myself from, colleagues and just focus on what I needed to do.
Okay. All right. So, as you told us about one of the mistakes that you made, with a younger member of your family being an introvert. Are there other things that you've learned that you used to do, or that that would help parents understand? Like, are there other mistakes that you could think of?
Yes. So, one of the things that, parents like to do, I'm not sure why. So like one of the things that I used to dislike a lot was if they were on the phone and they're talking to me like, "Oh, hold on a second." They basically like show the phone as like, "I don't want to talk." And it actually happened just the other day, and I said, "No, I'm not taking the phone." I said, what am I getting on the phone for? Right. So that was one thing that I didn't care for. And then, when we used to have company, oh, come down and say, talk to so and so. And I was like, I don't want to. And now, like, I feel like as an adult, I'm in control now
Right.
where I cannot, right? So I literally had someone decided to pop up one day and they called and text and said, "Are you home?" And I'm looking out the window like, "Nope." I feel like because I'm adult now, I can, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's important to just allow children to just have their space and their time, because it's not always a time and place for introverts. Like we really and truly appreciate being in our room, being in a corner, being anywhere alone. Doing whether it's reading, counting grass, but whatever it is, like we like to be often alone. So I think it's important for parents to understand that you know there isn't anything wrong. They're just quiet. Like we really and truly are just quiet.
Okay. All right. And are there some final things or takeaways you want to give to parents about learning about this type of personality?
I think that there is now a vast amount of information on the internet. And, because the reality of it is, when a child is silent, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are introverted. Other things can be going on, right? So I think it's important to just get to learn, your children. Nowadays, therapy is very popular. And to be honest, it was during therapy. I don't know what it is that I kept saying for my therapist to tell me, Antonia, I want you to get this book by Stephen Quiet. I was like, okay, and that's when I realized that I was introverted. It's not that I was shy whatsoever heavy, and I felt like I actually felt relieved at that moment because I felt like I belonged. Because the reality of it is, when you're quiet, you feel like you don't have a tribe because everyone else appears normal while you
Mm-hmm.
feel like oddball.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there are people who are introverted who are able to um, be extroverted to fit in, right? It's
Okay.
draining. Yes, it's draining. But children, you know, I think as children we try to adapt with the environment just so that we fit in. but as we grow older, it can change.
Okay.
um yes, but I would appreciate everyone picking up this book.
Get the
um
book.
Yes, because in the book, there are examples, and there are examples of any situation. For in every chapter, there are examples of how to interact with introverts, and then at the end of the chapter, there are questions for contemplation, so that this way, like you can learn a little bit more about introverts.
All right. And so, where can people find you? So, we'll have the link for the book, but what social media accounts or whatever you have?
So on Instagram, I am the introvert whisperer, or one word. So I am the introvert whisperer. And I recently started a YouTube channel, and it's Antonia's Blissful Corner.
All right. Amazing. We're so glad that you have joined us today and are sharing this important information about different personality types and connecting with your child. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week. We're going to pause for a break. I guess we're not pausing for a break. I'll put it in later. I had an ad. I have an ad, but it wasn't there. I don't know. Anyways.
Okay.
It says file not found. I don't know what happened. Anyway. All right. Let's continue. It's just so many technical issues. It's like, what in the world? All right. Okay. It's ridiculous.
Oh, well,
Well, mm-mm.
take a sip too.
Issues.
Mm-mm-mm.
Okay. All right, let me regroup for a second. Okay. All right, continuing on.